everyone, and welcome to Valley Homes on TV. I'm Debbie Giordano, along with my co-host Todd Flesner.
Hi, Debbie.
How are you?
I'm doing terrific, thanks.
Great. Well, folks, you've tuned into Channel 26, and you're watching our show on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 6:30 p.m., or you may be able to find us on Saturday and Sunday at 9 a.m. on Comcast here. So,
great. Well, I'm glad folks tune in, and we always bring people, or try to bring folks, interesting guests to talk about a variety of different sort of subjects that impact their lives, either financially, around housing, or about the community here in Milpitas.
Right.
And I have a guest today that I'd like to introduce, Avi Gingold, and Avi's with Legal Shield. And Legal Shield offers some interesting services that folks should be aware of, and it might be something that they consider in terms of how do they protect themselves, their homes, their belongings, and their livelihood.
terrific. Well, thank you, Avi, for sharing some insight with us today.
Thank you for inviting me.
We're glad to have you. Well, why don't you just we'll start off and we'll get to know you a little bit better, and maybe tell us a little bit about your background, how long you've been in the area, and even what brought you here to the Bay
Absolutely,
Area.
absolutely. So probably you can tell by my accent that I'm not a Native American.
I don't think there's a lot of them folks that aren't.
I'm actually original from Israel.
Okay.
And I spent most of my professional career in high tech. I'm a computer engineer by education, and I actually got to the United States, to California, through an acquisition. My startup was acquired by a local company, and they relocated my family and my wife and 3 kids in 2000. So I've been here since 2000.
Okay. So you were educated back in Israel then?
Yes, I got my my engineering degree back in Israel.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. So that brought you here to, so you came from your country right here to California, though?
Right.
Okay.
I came here.
And then the Bay Area, though?
Yes. Yes.
So what do you like about the Bay Area? What keeps you here?
Well, I love the weather, and I love living in a peace of mind, because coming from Israel, there's no dull moment over there.
No, not that I read. But.
And growing up, and you never know what tomorrow will bring. And here I could live a peaceful life, not having to worry about, the next bomb or the next war or anything like that.
Well, we take for granted, a lot of the environment that we have here, right? And until we, experience something else.
Right.
And so, well, tell us a little bit more about kind of your background. You had a high-tech background in engineering, and you had a startup company that was acquired. What led you to Legal Shield, and what is it that attracts you to that profession?
And that's very interesting, because 2000 was the top of the hill here in the valley.
Yes.
Everything was just downhill since then.
Yes.
And I came here, and the company that brought me here basically started to collapse in 2002.
Oh my.
And I was laid off, and it was very difficult to find a job. And I started to doing some consulting to other young startups. And during that time, I needed some help with contracts and documents. And since we know that attorneys are very expensive, after spending about $1,500 to $2,000, somebody actually told me about Legal Shield.
Okay.
And I decided to get it for my consulting business.
Okay, so you were a client before you got into
Absolutely.
the
I
business.
was a client for about 3 years.
Okay.
Okay.
And what actually happened to me is I was just bragging about the service.
Uh-huh.
I never thought that I will sell things like that, but
Okay.
I told everybody about how that service helped me. And my business colleagues and customers and friends, they all said, wow, we didn't know that something like that exists.
Okay.
How can we get that too?
Okay. So let's back up a minute. So tell us a little bit more. What is Legal Shield, and what are the services?
Well, Legal Shield basically was established in 1972. So they've been over 40 years in business. And they deal today with two big mega trends in America. One of them is identity theft, which is a complete epidemic. And the other one is the legal system, that we know that the legal system in America is broken.
It's broken.
You could only get as much justice as you can afford. And there is enough justice for the top 10%, which could afford their dream team, and those who are the bottom 10%, they are on the public defender system, and all the 80% in between do not have access to the rights because they cannot afford it.
Okay. So it sounds to me then what you're describing is Legal Shield actually then provides access to attorneys and in the legal system. How does that work?
So Legal Shield provides you the ability to talk to an attorney on any matter, from the trivial to the traumatic, without having to worry about the high hourly cost. So for one flat monthly fee, you and your covered family member can get advice, have contracts and documents reviewed, have letters written on your behalf, help with traffic tickets, have your will prepared.
Well, Avi, we'll stop at that. Are you limited to how many times you can have that reviewed in a month, or
Unlimited.
Unlimited?
You have unlimited advice and consultation, unlimited contracts and documents review, unlimited letters written on your behalf. So if you're in a situation and maybe a letter from a law firm can help, or maybe a phone call, they will do that for you, for your spouse, or for your children. All under $20 a month.
Wow.
Really, I was going to say, I mean, that sounds like it would be expensive for folks, but that $20 a month, that's pretty affordable.
Right, and you're probably asking yourself, how is that possible?
Right.
So the reason that it's possible is that Legal Shield developed a network of provider law firms. So in every state in North America, we have one major law firm, which is the provider law firm for the entire state. So all the members in a state pay into one law firm. So when you call that law firm, you are not at $20 a month, you are the number one customer, because collectively we pay them over $1.6 million a month.
So by pooling those
By
resources.
pooling. So it's the same concept that insurance
Okay.
product work, we do that. But the main difference between us and insurance is that we emphasize the preventive side of that business, where insurance is always something bad needs to happen for you to use insurance. Where with Legal Shield, we give you the ability to have access so you could make better decisions in life.
Excellent.
Good. So it's just a phone call away if you have a contract that needs to be reviewed, or you have some sort of a dust-up or whatever, you need some legal advice, literally a phone call away.
Exactly. And it's especially for all these legal things that happens to us in life. And I'll give you an example. How many times have you been treated unfairly or been overcharged for something? Had to sign a contract or a document? Maybe received a traffic ticket? Those are everyday life events that when it happens to us, we don't even think about going and calling an attorney because we could not justify the cost. So this is something to help people and also small businesses in areas like that, where they can have access to the rights and they can make the right decisions and eliminate all the burdens that we actually put on the court system. Because even if you need access to the court system, you need to wait for months or years until you can get justice, because they are clogged with frivolous lawsuits.
Okay. Well, you mentioned two main things. One is kind of this access to legal advice. The other was on ID theft. Let's talk a little bit more about the ID theft and what's the issue with that, and how does Legal Shield help?
Absolutely. So over a decade ago, Legal Shield teamed up with a company called Kroll, Kroll, and Kroll is the largest risk management on the planet, actually. Also over 40 years public company, and they usually work with government and countries. And they saw the trends over 10 years ago. They saw the trends with identity theft even before we could even spell it. And they actually asked us to team up with us because they knew that identity theft is a legal problem and access to attorneys is necessary. And because we had already that infrastructure, including a 24/7, so actually our members can talk to an attorney around the clock, whether they are, in an emergency situation. So what makes us very, very unique is that we are the only company in the industry of identity theft that does full restoration through dedicated licensed investigators. So if you become a victim, not only on the financial side, but we actually provide help in social security identity theft and driver license identity theft, medical, which is on the rise these days because of the high cost of healthcare and many people cannot afford it. They just go on the internet and they buy somebody else's card.
Okay, I have a thought. So it's a very cost-effective way of getting either legal advice or whatever. So how basically is it different than, say, a private attorney's?
Very different. The way private attorneys get paid is by billable hours. That's A. And B, attorneys today are like doctors. When you have an eye problem, you're not going to a foot doctor. So when you have a family issue, you're not going to talk to a general, practice attorney or to a tax attorney.
Correct.
So that attorneys today specialize in each and every area.
Correct.
So you may have maybe a friend that is an attorney and he practices family law, but you have a question about a real estate transaction. He cannot help you. That's one thing. And secondly, their cost is very high. Because all for different reasons, right? So the average person who makes $20 an hour or maybe $10 an hour, how can they afford to pay
They can't access
$100 or $200 an hour just to ask a question?
Yeah, okay. Interesting. Good point, good point.
Well, good. Well, how does Legal Shield then help people? Let's say, we were talking about the identity theft piece of things. How does it help someone who's had an identity theft issue?
So
That's a great question.
Absolutely, absolutely. So here's the thing which I saw, because I train and I educate all over the country about identity theft as an identity theft specialist myself. And the problem is that the media is misleading the public, because most people think that identity theft is somebody took some money out of my credit card or made a purchase. That's credit fraud, and usually the banks and the credit cards will take care of it. But I'll give you an example, Debbie. If you drive back home today and you are stopped on a routine traffic check, and the law officers ask you for driver license and registration, go back to the car, run it, and come back, but now he's standing from a distance. And he said, "Ma'am, could you please step out of the vehicle?" Would you agree that's already not a good sign?
That's not a good sign.
Can you imagine where you are going? Because he found that somebody actually, with your driver license, got a DUI maybe in Texas, didn't show up to court, and now there is a warrant for your arrest.
Oh, my.
Can you call your credit card company at that moment?
No.
Or any of those companies that advertise on TV? They cannot help you. But if you have Legal Shield, you could at that moment, even if it's 10 o'clock at night, pick up the phone and talk to an attorney, because it's an emergency, and help you represent you on the phone and find out why that law officer wants to arrest you. And not only that, but after you are done with it, you could actually have our special investigators go out and clean up all the records, where you could be with your family, you could show up to work, you could run your business, and not having to spend hundreds of hours and thousands of dollars to try to clean up that mess. And I've seen many, many people that have been going through this situation, and for years they're dealing with this thing. Because here's the thing, a drug dealer is out of business when they're out of drugs, right? But an identity thief is never out of business.
Oh, yeah.
Because they can keep reselling your Social Security, your driver license, as many times as they can. And that's why people end up with hundreds of people using their social for employment or for other reason, using their driver license and things like that.
Wow, that's pretty scary.
It is. And here's the thing. In 2013, there were 13 million data breaches. 12 months later, there are 600 million. So it's not a question whether you'll be a victim. The only question is, when will you notice that? Because everything about us is in databases. And Todd, I had in the last year numerous actually mortgage brokers that came to me and said, I had a client, they wanted to apply for a mortgage, and I asked them to submit their taxes. It was before April 15. So they went out to submit their taxes online, and they got a message that a refund was already issued. Somebody else got the refund for them. So they couldn't get a mortgage, they couldn't buy the house, couldn't submit the taxes, and now they're dealing with a situation like that. So those areas are much more difficult to deal than just to call your bank and say, hey, please change my credit card, or close my bank account, or anything like that.
Wow, well, you've sold me on the need for something like that. So did you have something else?
Well, no, I mean, it's scary. I mean, the potential is out there for each of us, right, that we could be a victim. And so you offer a solution to help people protect themselves. If folks have additional questions about that, where might they be able to get information?
So definitely they can go to my website, which is www.avigingold.com, my full name, AVIGINGOLD.com, and they can educate themselves about the legal plan, about the identity theft, and learn about all, the protections that they can get.
And then you sign people up?
Yes,
and
they
you-
can actually sign up online.
Uh-huh.
And usually it takes between 24 hours to 48 hours to be processed. And they can start getting help on whatever they need.
Well, it sounds like it's a growing business, and there's certainly a need to be filled out there. So, great. I mean, I'm so glad
Yeah.
you shared with us. I had no idea about the program and what you offer, and I'm glad that you're able to explain that. And I can certainly see that it's very necessary. So,
Definitely. And thank you very much for allowing me to educate our audience about those two important issues.
great.
Great, Avi, thanks. Appreciate you being our guest, and the best to you.
Thank you very much.
Best to you too.
Thank you very much.
We're the rise to every challenge type. The nothing is impossible type. The type that knows the time will come when we put type 1 behind us. We're the plan for a cure type. The improved life along the way type. The type that will stop at nothing until type 1 becomes type none.
All of us want to make a difference. As veterans, we committed to protect our country. We served and sacrificed for the things that mattered most. Those experiences shaped our lives, even if it isn't always obvious to those around us. And now that we've served, our commitments have taken on a new meaning. We're husbands, wives, parents, friends, and neighbors, but sometimes we still feel alone. We forget that our biggest challenge can be to ask for support when we need it. The Veterans Crisis Line is here for all veterans, service members, and their loved ones. Dial 1-800-273-8255 and press 1. Chat online at veteranscrisisline.net or text 838-255. It matters.
Can I go to the sleepover?
Lucy, I want you to promise me something. If there's any drinking, I want you to say, "No thanks, not my thing."
Mom.
I promise you, your real friends won't care. Deal?
I promise, Mom.
They really do hear you.
Did you pack your toothbrush?
For tips on how to start the talk, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov, a public service message from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration.
Through the years, trends and styles may come and go, but the important things remain the same. Generation after generation, consistently there, creating moments and memories to last a lifetime. Like a true friend, the national parks have always been there for you, and now you can be there for them. Support the National Park Foundation and help protect America's treasured places.
Welcome back, everybody. You're watching Valley Homes on TV. I'm Debbie Giordano, Todd Flesner here, and we're here to do an March wrap-up for
our spring wrap-up.
Spring wrap-up. Wrap-up. Yeah, there we go. So, mortgages, they're always in the news.
Absolutely.
And I know you're going to talk to the folks about interest rates in there. Let's talk about multiple mortgages. There's an article I cut out of the San Jose Mercury. It says, buying a new home and need to sell the first? Here's how to schedule your purchase and your sale for a new smooth transaction. So you've got a buyer and they're a buyer and a seller.
Right.
Or actually they're a seller and a buyer. And you're trying to bridge the gap between them being able to step into that up leg property. How can
Right.
we make that happen?
Well, there are a couple different strategies that you can utilize to do that. It's always a challenge that people face, right? Is, do I buy first? Do I sell first? And how do I time that?
Right.
I had actually an escrow that closed just this last week where we did just that. The trailing property was sold, and we used those funds as the down payment for the next property. Now, in a market like we have that's hot right now, selling that trailing home quickly, sometimes that timing works out just fine, right? But if things cool off and they're not properties aren't moving as quickly, that makes it a little bit nerve-wracking to place an offer, particularly one that's contingent on the sale of that trailing home. So to do that, you can do a couple things. One is to use what's known as a bridge loan.
Okay.
Right? And
Let's
normally,
talk about that.
A
How does
bridge
that
loan, well, it does just that. It bridges the gap between that old home and the new home. Typically, in that case, you need to have some equity in the trailing property.
So it actually becomes a cash element for the buyer.
Exactly. We basically borrow equity that exists in that trailing property to use as the down payment
Excellent.
for the new property. All right. So
Okay.
that works when there's a good deal of equity in that trailing property.
Okay.
If that's not the case, I also have another specialty loan product that's out there that enables folks to get financing on that upleg property. And we look again at the trailing property as a potential source of either rental income or what the potential sale of that might be.
Nice.
So there's some specialty underwriting. We have to look at some numbers and the facts and figures real closely for folks, but there are some ways to be able to structure that. The challenge, for that otherwise is if you hang on to the property and have a mortgage on a trailing property, you have to have a mortgage on the new property. How do you carry two loans at once? All right. So we have some ways to help bridge that gap.
Terrific. So that's wonderful. So we talked offline. What's the Fed's been doing, and
Well,
they met, and where are interest rates?
Well, interest rates continue to be historically great. We're in the high threes for a conforming fixed rate loan, and they bounce around a little bit on a daily basis, but right in the high threes to 4% for a jumbo 30-year fixed
Nice.
rate loan.
That's terrific.
It's fantastic. So interest rates remained real affordable.
And crystal ball?
Crystal ball. Well, we had a Fed meeting today.
Okay.
All right, and the speculation going into today's Fed meeting is what were they going to do about long-term interest or about interest rate policy? Were they going to change or signal a potential change in their interest rate policy? And they feinted to the direction of saying yes, that the economy it looks like we might be ready to have an increase in interest rates, so potentially moving the Fed funds rate up, which would increase things like the prime rate. But they also hedged that with saying that the economy's not in full recovery as well. And so, it's basic Fed speak. On one hand, things are looking better, but on the other hand, we're not fully there yet. That's interpreted that the Fed maybe later this summer to perhaps this fall may look to potentially be increasing rates some, but they're going to continue to watch the key numbers around employment numbers,
Inflation?
and inflation numbers. Those are the two keys.
Okay. All right. Let's talk about the real estate market.
Yeah, what's happening
especially
in Milpitas?
locally. Well, in Milpitas, another article in San Jose Mercury said housing picture isn't so rosy as Bay Area economy booms. And what that means is that we're now finding a lot of renters and potential home buyers are actually leaving this area due to a lack of affordability, and they're either renting outside of the area or purchasing. So that's from that article. But I got to tell you, Todd, that's not what I'm seeing in the marketplace. I had an open house this past weekend, had 100+ groups through for an average price property. So there's plenty of buyers. They're out there competing and bombarding each other trying to get properties. So a seller locally here will do well.
Okay. Well, good. And so you're seeing a lot of interest in people buying. Likewise, I'm getting a lot of interest in people being pre-approved for purchase of a home.
Good. And then the other aspect of the transaction is called the value assessment. Home sales, the appraisal is another huge issue. And what I'm seeing is that actually appraisers are meeting those purchase price contracts. I don't know what you're seeing from your end with the loan, but buyers are able to get financing based on appraised value, and those appraisal values are matching this increase in the market. So we're seeing a good, healthy market right now.
Right, and I, as well. I'm seeing the same thing. I've not had appraisal issues at this point in time.
Which we didn't in the past. We had challenges.
We've had some challenges. There's been a component added to the appraisal process, which really is an examination of the local market conditions. Right, and so now the appraisers take a little bit more thorough look at what's happening in terms of offers over asking price and increase in values.
And Todd, what I understand, I was at a marketing meeting last week and talking to some other agents, and what I understand that's going on is the appraiser's using a time value adjustment.
Yes.
So we've had a huge level of appreciation this year already,
Yes.
and the appraisals are catching up to that value. So would you like to see what the numbers look
Yeah,
like
let's see
in
how we're
Milpitas?
doing.
Okay, great. Let's start with February 2014. That's over a year ago. The single-family residence, the average price was $715,000, and median price was $677,000. And that shifted to last month, February 2015. We have an average price of $799,000 and a median price of $767,000. So just about a $100,000 bump. And I think you're going to see that shift when we report out in the next 2 to 3 months. I think you're going to see another 25, 50K added to that. That'll be my prediction to that number, to that value. And let's look at the condo market. That's always exciting. I can't understand it, but I guess it's affordable. So February 2014, the average price for a condo was $496,000. Median price was $484,000. And the numbers as of last month, average condo price is $672,000.
My goodness.
We should have bought 100 condos. And median price was $633,000.
So the appreciation actually in the last year has been much greater in the condo market than it has been in the single-family home
and again,
market.
I keep saying we're going to see that change, that it's going to shift to the single-family home market because we're not building any more of those. They're just far and few between, and we're going to see that bump in that price.
And I agree with you. I think part of that's been the affordability piece of it, that the condo market's been a little bit more affordable for first-time home buyers to move into, and probably a little bit more competition.
Yep. Well, and I hope you have a good couple weeks, and we'll be back in, and we've got, I think it's one of your your coordinators.
Leslie, who works in my office, who helps coordinate our loans and ushers our loans through the loan program or the process and keeps everything on track. He's going to come in and share with us some tips and tricks in terms of making sure your loan
behind the scenes,
making sure that your loan goes smoothly. What can you do as a borrower?
And then after her, we are going to interview a local mover here in Milpitas, so give some ideas about moving, which is a lot of folks are moving out of state. So
terrific.
All right.
Well, glad the folks have joined us, and we appreciate you tuning in.
Thank you.